Igniting curiosity across depots, command centers, and beyond. Welcome to your weekly Depot AI brief, where emerging AI meets mission-ready insights.
It is really great to be back for this one.
Welcome to Episode 9, Breaking, Pentagon-Anthropic AI Standoff.
Yeah, and honestly, standoff might be putting it a little lightly. This has been a completely seismic week for the defense tech landscape.
Oh, absolutely. Today we're breaking down exactly how these AI updates impact our four core roles, from the shop floor to the executive suite, and we'll wrap up with key highlights and insights on the commercial tools flashing on our industry radar.
Which is, it's crucial right now, because this is probably the most significant shift in the vendor landscape we have seen in, the last 2 years.
Yeah.
We're talking about a fundamental changing of the guard at the highest levels of the DoD.
Right. Before we dive into our personas, we really have to set the stage for this. If you haven't seen the headlines, the Trump administration has officially banned Anthropic.
The makers of Claude, right?
Yes, banned them from federal government use. And they've cited supply chain risk.
Which is just a massive development. I mean, for a long time, Claude was a major favorite for its reasoning capabilities. But almost immediately after that ban dropped,
Literally hours later.
right, hours later, OpenAI confirmed a deal with the Department of War for a classified network deployment.
So one door slams shut and a very large classified door opens for another vendor. It really feels like the music just stopped in a game of musical chairs, and Anthropic just didn't find a seat at the Pentagon table.
Exactly. And for the OIB, the Organic Industrial Base, this changes the playing field completely. It signals that reliance on commercial APIs is getting riskier, and the move toward government-secured instances is, it's becoming mandatory.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're going to look at how this and other news from the week of March 1st, 2026 hits the ground level. We are starting with our first persona, the artisan.
The mechanic, the maintainer, the folks out there turning wrenches.
Precisely. If you are on the floor at CCAD, that's Corpus Christi Army Depot for the uninitiated, or really any of the major depots, there's a tool that popped up in Business Insider this week that you need to know about. It's called TyrOS.
Yeah, TyrOS is fascinating because it tackles the single biggest frustration for maintainers in the field or in those deep maintenance hangars, which is connectivity.
Right. We talk about the cloud all the time. It's the answer to everything, right? But if you are inside the hull of an aircraft or you're deployed in a contested environment where someone is actively jamming your signal,
The cloud might as well be on Mars.
exact.
Or worse, trying to connect to it actually gets you targeted electronically. This is where TyrOS is doing something fundamentally different.
How so? Because usually when we say AI, we imply massive data centers and high-speed internet.
Right, usually. But TyrOS is running what we call edge inference. It's not phoning home to a server in Virginia to ask, do I need more ammo? Or is this bearing about to fail? It's running the math locally, right there on the device.
So it's like having a master mechanic riding shotgun in the server, even when the radio is totally dead.
That is a really great way to put it. It moves logistics from reactive, fixing what just broke to predictive.
Knowing a part is failing before it stops the line.
Exactly.
That is the dream, right? Not waiting for the red light to blink.
Yeah.
But let's connect this to the tools you actually have access to right now, because not everyone has TyrOS yet. If you are a mechanic at CCAD trying to check part history, you don't need to wait for a new acquisition program.
No, you definitely don't. You should be looking at Army Vantage.
Walk us through that. What is the before and after here?
The before is manually digging through paper logs or legacy digital systems that take 10 minutes to load just to find out when a rotor was last serviced. The after is using Vantage to visualize part failure rates. It's about seeing the trend line, not just the single data point.
And what about the technical manuals? That's the other bottleneck I hear about constantly. Staring at a 3,000-page PDF on a greasy tablet, trying to find one specific torque setting.
Oh, absolutely. This is where Copilot, specifically the IL5 version, so Impact Level 5, authorized for DoD, comes in.
Yeah.
You can use it to summarize dense technical manuals into step-by-step checklists. You literally ask it, extract the safety compliance steps for the rotor assembly sequence, and boom, you get a checklist.
That saves so much time. But I do want to bring in a quote from the Defense Logistics Agency, the DLA, from their CIO. They made a really important point this week that adds a bit of reality to all this tech talk.
Yes, they said, not every problem is an AI problem.
I love that. It feels like permission to use common sense.
It's a necessary reality check. For the artisan, these tools, whether it's TyrOS or Vantage, They only work if the data is clean.
Yeah.
If you aren't logging repairs correctly or if the sensor data is garbage, the AI is just going to predict nonsense.
So the takeaway for the shop floor is use the tools to speed up the search, but keep your data entry disciplined. Because the robot is only as smart as the logbook you feed it.
Precisely. Garbage in, garbage out applies to million-dollar AI just as much as it does to a basic spreadsheet.
Spot on. All right, let's move up the chain to our second persona, the analyst. These are our data crunchers, logistics planners, the strategists.
People who usually live in Excel hell.
Oh, totally. And if you are one of them, the landscape is shifting rapidly under your feet right now. The Army CIO is on a warpath against legacy systems.
It is aggressive modernization. According to Federal News Network, the Army CIO killed 100 legacy systems in just 2 quarters. That is unprecedented speed for government IT.
From 800 down to 300 business systems. That is a lot of silos being knocked down. That's a lot of, this is how we've always done it, being thrown out the window.
And it connects to a mandate that came out of the Navy on February 25th. They designated GenAI.mil as the enterprise service for CUI-controlled unclassified information.
Why does a Navy mandate matter to an Army analyst at AMCOM?
Because it sets the precedent. The services tend to align on these enterprise IT decisions. It means the days of having your own little siloed data tool on a local server are numbered. The Pathway for Innovation document from Army.mil explicitly says speed takes priority over perfection in testing.
So if you are an analyst, how do you survive this consolidation? How do you make sure you're still relevant when the legacy system you were the expert on gets deleted?
You stop being a data janitor.
I think a lot of people feel like data janitors, spending 6 hours cleaning the data, formatting columns, and maybe 1 hour actually analyzing it.
Exactly. The authorized tool mapping here is using Ask Sage or GenAI.mil to handle the grunt work.
Give us a specific example. Let's say I'm at AMCOM.
Okay, think about the typical Tuesday morning at AMCOM. You need to find every rotor assembly serviced in the last 90 days that had a specific vibration fault.
That is a nightmare query. You're joining 3 different tables. You're dealing with messy date formats. That's half the day of work if you aren't a SQL wizard.
Right, and this is where the data janitor problem kills us. But with tools like Ask Sage or GenAI.mil, the workflow changes. You don't write the code. You paste in the schema, just the structure of your database, and you tell the AI in plain English, write me a SQL query to pull all rotors serviced in the last 90 days with vibration faults.
So you're acting as the architect, not the bricklayer.
Exactly. It turns a 4-hour frustration into a 30-second copy-paste job. And that is what the Army CIO means by modernization. It's not just new software. It's stopping the waste of human brainpower on syntax errors so you can actually analyze the logistics trend.
Which is exactly what leadership wants. You get to the so what much faster. Speaking of leadership, let's talk about our third persona, the supervisor. The team leads, section chiefs, the folks managing the rosters.
The squeeze on supervisors is always time. You are stuck doing administrative work when you want to be on the floor with your team.
There was a really interesting report from the Federal News Network this week about the workforce itself. It turns out veterans have a distinct edge in the AI economy.
This is a great point. The narrative used to be, you need to learn to code. Everyone was pushing Python boot camps. But as AI handles more of the coding, the premium shifts to resilience, adaptability, and leadership things veterans have in spades.
It's the soft skills that are actually the hard skills now.
Right. And we saw an update from Jira, the project management tool, highlighting AI agents that now work side by side with humans on tickets.
That sounds a bit sci-fi, like the AI has its own employee ID.
Basically, it is becoming standard. But for the supervisor right now, using authorized tools, the win isn't necessarily having an AI employee yet. The win is in reducing red tape.
So how do we map this to the daily grind?
Copilot in Microsoft 365. Think about the morning stand-up. You get a dense new safety regulation PDF from Command. Usually you'd spend an hour highlighting it to figure out what to tell the crew.
And trying to translate bureaucrat speak into something a mechanic actually cares about.
Exactly. Instead, upload it to Copilot and ask, create a 5-bullet point briefing for my morning stand-up meeting, explaining how this changes our PPE requirements.
Done in seconds.
And that buys you an hour to actually go inspect the line or mentor a junior mechanic. That is where the supervisor adds value, not in reading PDFs, but in leading people.
That's the efficiency dividend. Okay, let's go to the top. Persona number 4, the executive. Commanders, directors, senior leadership.
This is where we have to go back to that opening story, the Pentagon-Anthropic Standoff.
It's all over the news, NPR, Reuters. The Trump administration banning Anthropic due to supply chain risk. What does this actually mean for a depot commander?
It means risk management just became your #1 priority. If your command was piloting Claude or you had a shadow IT project using their API, you have a 6-month transition period to get off it.
That is a tight timeline for government work. Usually it takes 6 months just to schedule the meeting to discuss the transition.
Extremely tight.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's a wake-up call. We rely on these commercial vendors, but they are subject to geopolitical and political winds.
Mark Samerly, the DLA director, had a quote in Executive Gov that really struck me. He said, AI is the new gunpowder.
It is a powerful analogy. Gunpowder isn't just a nice-to-have, it is a strategic necessity. But you also don't buy your gunpowder from a vendor that might get cut off tomorrow.
Right. In our world, supply chain risk usually means a bolt made of cheap steel that snaps under pressure. How does that apply to a chatbot?
It's about the supply chain of intelligence. If you build your logistics workflow around Claude's API, and suddenly that company changes its terms of service or gets acquired by a foreign entity, or in this case gets hit with a federal ban, your logistics chain breaks just as surely as if that bolt snapped.
So, for the executive, what is the play here? How do you protect the OIB from this volatility?
Strict adherence to GenAI.mil at the IL5 and IL6 levels.
IL5 being controlled unclassified, IL6 being classified.
Correct. Executives have to enforce the use of government-owned or contractually secured instances, like this new OpenAI classified deal, rather than letting teams use commercial web interfaces.
Because if you are using the commercial web version, you are vulnerable to these sudden rug pulls.
Exactly. Sovereignty over the data and the model availability is key. You cannot have your logistics chain break because of a policy change in Washington or a terms of service change in Silicon Valley.
So secure the supply chain of intelligence just like you secure the supply chain of parts.
Precisely. That is the strategic imperative for 2026.
Okay, that wraps up our core brief. We've covered the shop floor, the data room, the supervisor's desk, and the boardroom. Now, let's shift gears.
Time for the industry radar.
A quick disclaimer before we dive in. Please note, these are home lab or industry awareness tools only and are not currently authorized for COI or depot networks. Do not go plugging these into the SIPRnet, folks.
Please don't. Keep these for your personal learning or open source research.
First up on the radar, the model flood. February 2026 was absolutely insane for releases.
It was. In a single week, we saw Gemini 3.1 Pro, GPT 5.3, and Claude Sonnet 5 drop.
And we just finished talking about Anthropic being banned, but Sonnet 5 is out there in the wild commercially.
It is. And we also saw Grok 4.20 and DeepSeek V4. The pace is accelerating. For the OIB, the takeaway isn't necessarily about picking a winner, but understanding that the capabilities are jumping exponentially every few months.
It feels like we just get used to one level of capability and then the floor races again. It's like buying a new phone. The moment you unbox it, there's a rumor about the next one.
That is the nature of the beast right now. But remember, for us, capability without security is useless. That's why we watch these commercial models, to see what's possible, but we deploy what's secure.
Next up, AI optical inspection. This came from a report by Novia PCBA.
This is really cool. We are seeing AI-powered cameras transforming quality control on electronics manufacturing commercially.
How does that apply to us?
Well, think about CCAD or the engine shops. Right now, inspecting a turbine blade or a circuit card involves a highly trained human staring at it under magnification.
Which is fatiguing and prone to error after a few hours. Your eyes play tricks on you.
Exactly. This commercial tech automated optical inspection is going to end up in our depots. It creates a digital twin of the part and highlights microscopic fractures or soldering errors instantly. It's coming.
Finally, on the radar, hybrid teams. We touched on this with the Jira update earlier.
Yes, the idea that software now treats AI agents as employees. They have their own tickets, their own login credentials in a sense.
It's not just a tool you use, it's a teammate you assign work to.
That is the mental shift. And as we look at workforce planning for 2027 and beyond, supervisors need to start thinking about their headcount as including these digital agents.
Incredible stuff. It really feels like we are at an inflection point, especially with the governance changes at the top.
We are. The tools are maturing, but the rules of the road are getting stricter.
Which brings us to the end of this deep dive. If there is one thing to take away from this week, it's this. The vendor names might change. Anthropic is out, OpenAI is in, but the mission remains exactly the same. We are using these tools to increase readiness and velocity.
Well said. It is about the output, not the logo on the software.
Thanks for joining us. Whether you're turning wrenches in the hangars or crunching numbers for the command team, you are the engine that keeps Army aviation ready. Stay safe, stay innovative, and we'll see you on the next Depot AI Brief.